According to the 2010 census, there were approximately 11 million widowers worldwide compared to 3 million in the United States. Approximately 700,000 women become widowers each year. Over the course of 10 years, that makes approximately 7 million widowers. This is also including those who lost parents whom they were not legally married to. Kelley Raleigh is a newly widowed mother who lost her husband Eric more than a year and a half ago. Through her work as an intuition coach and brain trainer, she works with clients and leads retreats with a mission of teaching people how to gracefully move through grief and trauma. She's on a mission to change the conversation about how we view trauma and overcoming adversity. She possesses over 20 years of experience in heart-centered education, and she's created a leadership curriculum, international volunteer programs, and helping hundreds of families by centering the concept of harmony in their home. If you ever have gone on a healing journey yourself, then this is a valuable conversation you can't afford to miss. Raleigh opens up about her personal journey with tragedy and how she overcame the heartbreaking loss of her husband, how she finds solace in her work, and the personal gratification she receives when her clients find the center of their heart and grow from overcoming their own adversity and obstacles. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Take a moment to welcome you to the program, and I'm super excited to dive into your personal and professional journey this afternoon. Great to see you, and thank you so very much for a few minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, Kelley, I know that you know a thing or two about resilience because, of course, if people read up on your story, they can find out that you're a recent widow and you help others sort of find their prosperity after adversity. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about the good work that you do and how you look to impact people's lives.
Well, I feel like there's a lot of answers to that question. My background is in heart-centered education, and so I have been working for 20 plus years with teenagers and families and supporting them in their stresses. And when it came to my own and kind of getting back into the game and getting back into the world of personal growth, meditation, those kinds of things, after having a child, I discovered neurooptimal neurofeedback, and it was a substantial shift for me to really figure out how to relax my nervous system so that when that, tragedy happened in my life that was completely unexpected, I was able to just kind of take it for what it is and accept it and move into the process of healing with it. And so I like to bring solutions to the table. I like to bring different ways of looking at things. And I know I didn't have that growing up, so I like to just kind of offer, here's one way to look at something, or 5 different ways to look at something that could possibly shift your perspective, that can move you out of whatever stuck areas that you're in.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, as a lifelong educator, Kelley, I'm curious how you help people really grow through adversity. What do you think the keys are there?
Well, I think one big thing, and I'm finding this with my clients, is when we feel stuck or when we feel heavy or when we have like the big emotion going on, whether it's feeling of depression, anxiety, dealing like, or even kind of suppressing traumas, when we can forgive ourselves and move through whatever judgments we're holding on all of that, and again, accept where we are, like what just happened, that's going to, it's going to just give us space to just keep moving forward, if that makes sense. And so I work with people a lot to unlock, identify, and let go of these judgments that we're holding in our bodies, in our auras, in our fascia, in our subconscious, so that we can feel lighter and freer. And that's one of the biggest ways that I start working with people even before they do Neurooptimal.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Kelley, tell me, because I firmly believe in one of the reasons I wanted to start this podcast is I believe that there's strength and sort of vulnerability and really exposing the most vulnerable part of yourself in order to grow. And I'm wondering your thoughts when you hear the term strength and vulnerability. What do you think of?
I mean, I think they're beautiful. And I think that every single human, it can connect to it. And when we do that, if people can recall those moments when they've really connected with somebody, whether it was they're sharing something or they're listening to someone share something, and you feel a sense of, it's not even just empathy, but you feel a sense of like, oh, I now know this person better. Maybe I thought something else. Maybe I saw them in a different way. But when you really have that face-to-face connection, it changes everything. And so when we can choose to have empathy and operate from a place of vulnerability, and I'm not saying go around and cry all the time and share your story all the time, but just even being like, hey, I'm just actually having a really hard moment right now with a friend, or even like someone that you may not know very well, but just being authentic in yourself is going to take everybody so much further than continuing to like cover up and repress and wear a mask when that's not who we are. And so when we can connect to our humanity with all of that, I think magic happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that you work with teenagers of all shapes and sizes and emotions. And, you know, Kelley, I'll share with you, I'm 34 now. I just recently had a birthday in January. And, you know,
I did too. When was your birthday?
January 15th.
Mine was the 24th. Happy birthday.
Happy belated birthday. You know, January people are important people, right? That's what I tell my mother every year, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so, you know, one of the, you know, I was a big part of reflection this year for me on my birthday, and, you know, working with teenagers of all shapes and sizes, as I said, Kelley, comes with a different set of circumstances when you and I were growing up. And you know, raising a kid isn't the same like it used to be. And I know as a mom, you know all about that. So tell me about raising today's kid and how it is different from 10 to 15 years ago.
Well, I'm going to give you a very different answer than probably what you're expecting. So yes, I think there's some differences. We have social media, we have access to so much information now, and we have access to things that a lot of parents don't really want our kids to see. I'm going to back it up and say every decade can be the same. If we are choosing to treat our baby like from birth, or even really in utero, and continue to have respect for that human, that little being, with communicating communicating surroundings, communicating, an explanation of what's happening, and understanding that every baby is biologically designed to cry, to communicate for what they need, to be with their parents and sleep with their parents and nurse. And I'm probably not going to be giving an answer that a lot of people are going to like. However, I will say, when we look at how we can respect our child as a baby, as a teenager, and know that they are their own human and be with them in that space. We can't control them. They're going to communicate differently as a teenager than they did as a baby. But all of it's communication. And if we can get out of our own issues with what we're perceiving is happening, our connection to our child is going to deepen, and then our relationship can really sustain whatever it is that they are going through. And then hopefully we are instilling how to listen to our own intuition as a child. That's something really big for my child that I teach him. Like, okay, how do you feel around this person? How do you feel around this situation? Do you feel safe and secure in your body? And then how can you make choices to take risks and figure out how to do different things so that you're making that choice for yourself? And because he is an independent person. So I think if we did that across the board, social media wouldn't matter as much. Neighbors who do things differently wouldn't matter as much, because you've instilled the knowledge inside that child to really operate from their place of inner knowing.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a mom, I'm curious to ask you about if there's one lesson that your children or child takes away from you raising them and they forget everything else you taught them. What's the one lesson you hope that they use to sort of guide their life and form their principles in life?
Oh, that's a really great question. It would definitely be along the lines of bringing loving to everything. I'm not perfect at this. I just got upset at my child an hour ago, but bringing loving to everything and everyone in every situation, even when you're upset, and understanding that person or that situation, it is what it is. So how can you be in loving with yourself and with it? And then it just ties into like using your self-guidance. Like, how can I navigate this situation so that I can do it in, the most win-win situations, or the most loving for myself and the other person, so that we can come out of it in our humanity. Those would be the things.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kelley is an intuition coach and brain trainer, and I know you also run retreats. So tell me about your typical day and what makes your professional life so fascinating and rewarding at the same time.
Oh, goodness. Well, I do not have a typical day. There's not one day that's the same. I unschool my child, which means that he's home with me or he goes to do classes out with other families. So every day is different with that. I work with the most interesting clients. I literally just met last week. He came in for a session, and he's one of the most brilliant scientific minds of the last 2 centuries. And he was probably 65, and he shared his story and is a vet and did a session with me. And I'm following up with him now, but like he just needs so much support, and he felt so much better. He actually looked brighter after he left my session. And so I don't have a typical day, but it's doing podcasts, it's getting my message out that I'm just trying to offer as many solutions as I can, and that if we can relax our nervous system, everything changes in our world, in our own individual world. But I have a lot of fun in my day because I get to interact with so many different kinds of people in person and, online. And I just love what I do. And so I get to like thoroughly enjoy it. And then I get to learn. Like, I'm learning so much from all these other people that I'm interacting with or taking classes from. And so I don't have a typical day, but it's definitely full on till about 8 o'clock at night every single day, no matter what. And that's kind of how it goes. I love what I do.
Learning is a sponge, isn't it? The more knowledge you can gain from other people, the smarter you look as well, right?
I mean, that's the plan. Yes.
Absolutely. And Kelley, I know that you've done heart-centered education work for about 20 years, and as I mentioned, you're a facilitator, and you've created a curriculum sort of internationally, and you allow people to come take your curriculum to grow from a heart-centered educational perspective. So I'm wondering if you can dive into what heart-centered education is and why you think so many people can grow from it as well.
So heart-centered education, I don't know that there is like an actual definition, except it's living your life from your heart. Now, that's not to say don't, do like the physical world and, only be in meditation and don't handle your responsibilities and just kind of go through life, just kind of whatever. Heart-centered education is about taking radical responsibility for your life and your choices and your attitude with things. And so when I say, like I mentioned earlier, about bringing the loving to a situation, when my husband died and it was completely unexpected, I had a choice. Like I could go into the depths of like, why did this happen? And I had moments of that. But once I, like literally the next day, I accepted it. It's like, this is what happened. I now need to move into figuring out the rest of my life. I still have a child, a small child I have to parent. I still have a home that I have to care for. And I'm part of a community. So like, what am I doing and what's the legacy that I'm going to be leaving? And so it's about the heart-centered educational piece is I create, promote, and allow every single thing in my life. And so how can I handle this now? And when I accept it, which is like, I think the first spiritual law is acceptance. So when I accept it, I can continue now moving forward instead of being stuck in the like, oh God, I wish this didn't happen. Of course I do wish it didn't happen, and it did. So like, I'm just moving forward. So that's the heart-centered education piece, is living from your heart with life.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's dive into this curriculum more, because the work that you do I find to be fascinating in the sense of looking at people and helping them to achieve prosperity from a set of lenses. So I'm wondering about the curriculum, but also about the personal satisfaction you get when people that you work with discover their aha moments as well.
I mean, I think that's why we do what we do, right? If we're a coach and we work individually with people and they have the aha moments, it's like, and I will say, like, I believe that I'm a conduit for God's spirit, light, universe. So I don't really see it as something that I'm doing. I like to just be open to bringing in the spirit into whatever situation. So I guess to answer that question, the piece that I love the most is when people really start getting connected to themselves. And one example, I had a woman, it's now been a year and a half since I've known her. And she came to me solid for like a year, twice a week for a year. And she was going through a really abusive divorce, just horrible, and had a child. And she started doing sessions with me, and her child started doing sessions with me. And again, after the first session, she looked like a different person. But that was just the beginning. Like, there was so much wrapped up into her 30-year marriage that she needed to detach from and understand that she chose into that, and now she's choosing out. And so how can we empower that piece and let go of the past? Because we don't need to stay in the past. We don't need to live in it. We don't need to make him wrong. So let's move into how do we go forward? So again, it's a lot of like forgiving the judgments and identifying these beliefs that we hold that are not necessarily true. And so the exercises that I do just kind of move people through that. And then they're doing neurooptimal on top of it, which is just organically going to be allowing the brain to choose how it wants to relax. And then now they're like, I mean, just to stick with her and her son, I mean, she's like, I don't feel fear anymore. And I'm now moving into this life that I want. And I'm now creating a job for myself. And I'm now not letting the divorce proceedings like get to me, which is what I wanted for her, right? Just to get out of like the stuckness. And so that's why I love what I do. And so when they have these aha moments, it's like, it's like I can see it coming. I see the trajectory. I know that it's coming. And so I just hold for them because it may take a week, it may take 6 months. And like, I can't, control for that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that you're personally on a mission to change the way that we look at grief and trauma and really taking a different lens to that whole discussion. So I'm wondering if you can open up to tell me about how the mission is going and why it's so personally important to you.
I mean, I think it's going great. I mean, it's important to me because I know that we all have the answers inside of us. We all have the ability to heal and have the answers inside of us. And when people take that radical responsibility and they shift into, I'm now just going to choose to heal. I'm now just going to choose to accept what happened. I'm now just going to choose to, call in people to support me so I can get back in touch with, my inner knowing. So it's incredibly important to me because I think a lot of what is out there in terms of mental health is actually more destructive than helpful. And when I see people coming to me like they can't function and they don't know how to do it any differently, and they're listening to everyone tell them how they need to live their lives, and it's like, I'm not operating from that place with them. So like, what is it that you want? How can we get there? What is the information that you have inside of you? And how can we pull that out? Because I'm not here to tell anybody how to live, but I'm here to give you options of solutions. And so that's my biggest, that's my biggest mission, is just to tell people that there's options and you don't have to do it in a way where you're on all this medication and you're not sleeping and you don't have healthy relationships and you feel spun out at work. It's like, that's not how we were designed to live. That's not thriving.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kelley, how do you think your personal strategy helps you sort of authentically connect with the clients that you work with?
I mean, I would like to think that, the feedback that I've gotten is that they feel seen and heard. And I think that that's so important. And I know that I'm not the only person that can do that. There's other healers and therapists that also see and hear their clients. But that's the feedback that I get the most, is they feel seen and heard. And that when we even do a simple intention setting exercise, they feel lighter already. And they haven't even gotten on neurooptimal to like really get into the biological like movement of things. So I think that's what I would assume. That's the feedback that I've gotten, is that people feel seen and heard. And whether they're a teenager or, an adult, I'm not coming in telling them that how they have to live. I'm not that type of coach. So.
Yeah, and talking about finding happiness in your new normal when you've gone through grief and tragedy, how do you think you could find happiness and fulfillment while still paying homage to the events that you've gone through, but really moving forward? So how do you find happiness in your new normal?
Well, I have an amazing kid, like truly a really cool kid. He was almost 5 when his dad died, and he had an amazing relationship with his dad. And so he grew into that, and I get to continue that with him. I've just kind of always liked my life. I was creating an epic life with my late husband, and I'm going to continue doing that. Now it's just kind of my own version until there's somebody else in my life that adds to it. I just like my life and I have really, really good people around me, like really good people. And so it's not just about having fun. It's about, and I know you don't mean that, but like, it's also about like being real with what's going on. And there have been some really challenging days in the last year and a half where I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna, like, how we're gonna do this, like financially, like emotionally, all the things. And I just have a very strong connection to spirit and a meditation practice. And I do my neurooptimal sessions on myself so that my nervous system relaxes. And then it's like, okay, there's always a solution. Money always comes, there's always a solution. And I know what I'm doing makes a difference. So I'm just going to keep doing that. So yeah. And a lot of dance parties with my kid, like that helps, you know, just like moving my body and like being in nature and listening to music and, you know, being with my child.
And being where your feet are, right? It's always important to be present, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Kelly, I'm also curious to get your perspective on the concept of resilience and being resilient through adversity. And how do you think that we can create sort of, for a lack of a better word, formula or sort of coping mechanism to thrive through adversity and become resilient?
Well, I think the very short answer to that is to do neurooptimal sessions. And, you know, I've had a meditation practice for almost 20 years and I have a spiritual connection and a spiritual practice. And it's very important to me, which is, I think, one of the things that got me through, you know, Eric dying. But doing neurooptimal sessions is literally, it's a neurofeedback that just literally shows the brain and nervous system what it's doing in real time so that the brain and nervous system can choose how it wants to create a new neural pathway and relax itself. So with that, I'm going to be more resilient because I'm now just taking in information versus having an emotional reaction to things. And so when people can relax their nervous systems, jobs and businesses shift, relationships shift, your stress levels shift, like the road rage isn't there as much anymore, because when our nervous systems are relaxed and we're not living in fight or flight, we should not be living in that. When we're not living in it, our perception of things can change. And I will say, many people, myself included at times, are more comfortable staying in that space though, because to undo all of that means now you have to look at more things. And now you have to like take a lot more responsibility for how you're responding to things. And so it's kind of a double-edged sword of being more resilient in the world is great. And I would love that for everybody. It means there's a lot of unlearning that people are going to have to do to operate from that place. Now that we're relaxed and we're in our bodies more, what does that mean? And what does that look like for you? And where is the radical responsibility that you can take to make different choices or the same choices, but just from a different perspective? And I think that's where people can kind of get tripped up, because now they're paying more attention to different things versus just kind of going through life being, I don't love my job, but whatever, or I can't stand my relationship, or, you know, in that complaining kind of space. So I'm always like, it's time to get out of the story. It's time to relax the nervous system, and being resilient is going to give you the freedom that you want. It just is.
Yeah, absolutely. And building on that point, Kelly, you said that our bodies and brains are designed to heal, but sometimes with our stress and limiting beliefs, as you just finished articulating, you know, sometimes our thinking and our belief systems are altered. So I'm wondering the best way you can provide or advise people to get rid of their limiting beliefs to live the life that they want to live.
Well, first they have to identify their limiting beliefs, and many people don't want to even look at that. And so when I work with someone, you know, I ask them what's their intention and then what are their limiting beliefs that are keeping them from that. And there's some people that genuinely like need a minute to figure that out. I could, you know, knock mine off really quickly, but I've been doing this work for a very long time, and my limiting beliefs will change. All of our intentions change. All of our limiting beliefs change when we are moving and growing, because we're kind of building upon, the previous level. So people are going to want to have to identify their limiting beliefs. And when they do, then it just moves into like kind of a game of observation. It's like, I'm not here to tell you that those limiting beliefs are wrong. I'm not here to tell you that anything that you're doing is wrong. I'm here to ask you if that's working for you. And if this is working for you, then why are you here? Because if you're not sleeping well, you don't have the relationship that you want, you're super stressed at work, like whatever the things are, you haven't healed from a past trauma when you were a child, like whatever those things are, we've got to unpack a lot of that. And so it starts with, like I mentioned earlier, the forgiving of the judgment of those limiting beliefs, because they're just beliefs. They're probably not even real. They're things that are keeping you in this box. And so to move out of that box, people are comfortable in the box. So they've got to like figure a way to get out of the box. And I just offer a space to do that. And NeuroOptimal, just helps significantly.
Yeah, and to that point, Kelley, I'm also curious to ask you, when you think of the term inner strength, how do you define the term for yourself personally?
I mean, perseverance, just continuing to move, continuing to just keep moving and like figuring it out. My business coach is always like, just pivot. If something's not working, just pivot, figure it out. There's always a solution, always a solution. Money always comes, love always comes. There are solutions everywhere. So the inner strength is just, not giving up. But, and I think it's deeper than just love yourself, I think I mentioned this earlier, like, I think the mainstream way of dealing with mental health is just love yourself, love your body, you're perfect how you are. And it's like, well, are you? Like, are you being rude to everybody in your life? Are you not taking responsibility for anything in your life? And so maybe you are, okay. But then are you keeping toxic people in your life? And so it's all, the strength is continuously choosing to move those boundaries where, okay, this was my comfort zone. I accepted all of this. And now I'm going to be here because I have a different intention. I've cleaned out more, of my inner, whatever. And now I'm operating from here. So that inner strength and that inner resolve it's just that continuous drive to like want to have a better life, Yeah.
And Kelley, as I shared with you at the beginning of our conversation, I have cerebral palsy, but I always tell myself that, the only limits on my life are the personal ones that I have placed on myself. And, I'm not a huge believer in personal restrictions, and always, I always try to stay positive, because in my view, it takes a lot more energy to be negative than it does positive. So I'm curious, when you look at the concept of inclusivity, both in life and business and professionally, how do you define inclusivity, and how do you think we can create a world where more people of more perspectives are valued, Kelley?
I think it just comes to touching into humanity. And I think a lot of the narrative out there right now is to divide us. And I talk to a wide group of people. I grew up in a Republican home, but I was liberal. I am around a lot of libertarians. I probably consider myself more libertarian now. I'm around a lot of conservatives. I see the gamut, whether they're my friends or clients, or just, peripheral community. And I have to say, the conversations that I have with all these different kinds of people, they overlap a lot more than what the narrative says. And so when we can touch into humanity and just look across the table, the Zoom, the whatever it is, and find whatever that commonality is, that's where we're going to make the change. But I have to be confident enough in myself to to be vulnerable enough in myself. One of your original questions is vulnerability strength and those kinds of things. I have to be willing to be vulnerable enough with myself and this person that's sitting across from me to show my authentic ideas and ways of being, and then accept theirs and accept that theirs may be different than mine, but that doesn't mean that they don't respect me. It just means they want to do things differently. And I think when we can touch into the humanity and the authenticity of each person, but I don't know if a lot of people are ready for that, because there's a lot of people telling people how to live, and I just don't think that that's going to work long term.
Well, Kelley, I always say there's value in diversity and perspective, isn't there?
Completely. Yes. That's how we learn about ourselves. Like, you and I could have a discussion on something and have completely different views, but we get to learn. Like, I get to learn something. You will probably then tell me a fact or two that I didn't know. That's great. You know what I mean? And vice versa. So, like, I think we need to stop being scared of being around people that seem different than us. And that goes both ways. It really does go both ways. Because like I said, I'm around a wide group of people, and there's a lot of people on kind of both sides that feel like nobody's listening, and they're not. So the diversity is great, and the inclusivity means that we're just being human and being authentic and like touching into that piece with the other person.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kelley, my final question for you this afternoon has to do with your own personal and professional legacy and how you want that to be defined.
Oh, that's a fantastic question. I've been thinking about that actually, and that there's love everywhere. There's love everywhere. There's solutions everywhere. There's humanity everywhere. And I think when we can touch into that, even for a brief moment, that's when things can unlock for people. So there's love everywhere. There's humanity everywhere. There's solutions. And when you're literally open as a magnetic being, as an energetic magnetic being, because we all are, and when we are truly open to that, that's when things, fall into our lives, come into our lives, so that we can release the things. And I just, hope that I can be a part of sharing that, and giving people an opportunity to find that in themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kelley, finally, tell me, if people want to get connected with you, what's the best way they can do that?
My website is thekindbrain.com. My email is Kelley, Kelley, at thekindbrain.com. I'm on Instagram, kind.brain. All sorts of ways that people can reach out, and I would be happy to support them and talk with them.
Well, fabulous. Well, I'm glad that you found some time to talk to me this afternoon, and I have to say, Kelley, I really admire your story of both strength, perseverance, and grit, my friend. I want to thank you for sharing a part of your life with me this afternoon, opening up about your story and all the good work that you do to help people sort of overcome strategy and thrive through adversity. Your work in the space and time on my behalf is most appreciated, and I want to thank you for being here this afternoon.
Thank you, Kevin. I really appreciate it. I mean, this has been fun, and not everybody asks these kinds of questions, so like it's been good, and I just really appreciate you. So thank you, Kevin.